have cliques, and so to some degree, the usual clique, the usual certain Claremont cliques were represented at the
But
private
she's not
party.
really saying anything. It says a listening tour. So, and what it brings to my mind is that once the whole Upper Valley knows about her, I don't know if she went anywhere else in the Upper Valley.
I think she'll be back.
Yes, but what I'm saying is some towns and places around are going to say, well, why didn't she come to our town? Why didn't she do this? And also maybe she knows that she's stepping on somewhat shaky grounds in New Hampshire.
Swing state.
Simply because New Hampshire has the live free or die model, and a large number of conservatives, ultra conservatives, extreme conservatives, people for guns rights, and other types of things here. And so she may have just been testing this.
Now, generally speaking, one other thing that really I'm curious about is, generally speaking, events like that, a house party, are fundamentally fundraisers. So I haven't seen any report on, in order to get an invitation, assuming you were a part of the local Democratic clique, how much it cost to get in on the party. Was it
I see.
$1,000 or $5,000? Or knowing the Clintons, I would think that it would have to be at least $5,000 to get in. But I'm sorry, if anybody has any information about how much it costs to get to the Hillary Bash in Claremont, tell us.
Well, perhaps your invitation's still in the mail. I don't know.
Undeliverable.
I must say, in my lifetime, as far as the Clintons and the Bushes, you know, we've had 8 years of the Clinton, we've had 12 years of the Bushes, and that's probably more than half of my lifetime. And
It's more than what we wanted.
and I'm ready to see a new face. And
New jeans.
yeah, you know, I'm ready. I mean, she has to start somewhere. So me in New Hampshire, that's fine. And I agree with you. She'll be back.
Now, wait a minute.
Welcome to the Eye on the Twin State Valley. I'm Halford E. Jones, and today I have two special guests, Bernie Falter from Claremont and Michael Huss from Claremont. And we're going to talk about a number of issues concerning the Twin State Valley, Claremont, and other things. And I'd like to begin by having you, Bernie, tell us a little bit about your background. I understand that you worked both sides of the river. You've been in Vermont and New Hampshire. Where did you begin?
Thank you, Halford. I'm Bernie Folta, as I say at council meetings that I go to, Bernie Folta, Ward 3. I was born and brought up in Claremont, graduate of Stevens High School. And I like to say, when at the end of my adolescence and my high school career, I spit on the earth and I said, I'll be darned if I ever come back here again. But 10 years ago, back to Claremont, and so I've been there. In the meantime, I had been to school in the Midwest, married a gal out there, although that didn't continue. 3 kids, and my main career was at the National Life Insurance Company in the computer department in Montpelier, Vermont, where I spent 27 very satisfying years. And then I was able to take early retirement. And I did some other things in early retirement, but then, as I said, 10 years ago, moved back to Claremont.
And you've been active ever since then? In
Yeah,
local
pretty much.
politics
Yeah, and
everything?
it started with, I got appointed in Claremont to the Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission. Okay. And when I was appointed, turned out there was a little bit of trouble, which I guess I have to claim a little responsibility for. But what I'm getting at is that kind of got me into what I call civic political life. And so I've been kind of community activist, you might say, while I've been in Claremont, going to various meetings, including the city council meetings where many people see me, and I'm pretty much interested and to some degree involved in what's going on in Claremont, what I call civic political life.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you still interested in the area growth and development on both sides of the river? In other words, in the regionalism that may be emerging in various ways?
Yes, I am. As a matter of fact, I think to some degree the regionalism is increasing. For example, just this week earlier, there was a regional gathering on energy, Upper Valley Energy. It was like a conclave of energy committees. It was held at the Montshire Museum in Norwich. And so there is, it seems to me, more regionalism. Maybe there's always been some in the Upper Valley. By that I mean Hanover and Lebanon and White River and Norwich. But it seems to be spreading. And so, yeah, there is more regionalism. And Claremont, I think, is becoming more of a participant in that because the Upper Valley, Claremont didn't used to be considered part of the Upper Valley, but now it kind of is. And
but
some people are still getting used to that.
Is it sort of a backroom community for the Upper Valley? In other words, a bedroom community? People live there and work in the Upper Valley or work in Vermont or work in another part of New Hampshire?
Well, there are certainly people who commute from Claremont to the Upper Valley here, the Dartmouth College or the medical center. But I don't think that's the whole story. I think generally speaking these days, I think jobs are regional. So we also have people who live out of Claremont who come to Claremont to work.
Well, of course, I could say that they are also global these days, too. If you really want to work somewhere, you might want to go global. I saw this headline. It says, by a wide margin, Claremont votes no on charter changes. How did you both feel about the charter change proposition? What was your take on that?
I didn't read it.
Well, you know the did you know about the charter change?
Yeah, yes, but I have not read.
But you knew that they went
Yes.
against changing it.
Indeed.
And the committee was initially split down the middle, if I recall.
Pretty close. I was pretty involved in that. As a matter of fact, I helped gather signatures for doing the charter because I thought we were going to try to update the current Claremont City Charter, which was fix the current Claremont City Charter, which is the city manager and council form of government. However, when the Charter Commission was elected by a very small turnout, the 9 members of the Charter Commission were indeed split, and by a 5-4 vote, eventually, the Charter Commission decided to look into a different flavor of city, which was a strong mayor-alderman situation. And so they did their work for 6 or 7 months and presented essentially a completely new charter to replace the one we have and had, in order to be governed more like Manchester and Nashua. And when that came before the ballot last November, the citizens trounced it.
Yes.
And I think part of what happened is that people thought, as I did, that we were going to work on the current charter with the current form of government. But because that got switched, then you see the headline in the Valley News, by a wide margin, Claremont votes no on charter changes. And I think what they're voting on is they did not want to change the city government from one flavor, the one we have, to this new and potentially unknown new way of doing things.
But it's funny because ironically, they were in the news recently. There were a couple of towns, at least one anyway, or a city in cities in New York State, that were doing that same thing. They were considering not so much abolishing the charter and going back, but to change the existing charter, to change the language. I think there was even in Vermont, there was one they were trying to go back and, because they said the language of the charter was way, way back. You know, like the word constable. They said, what's a constable? And
Right,
I said to
right.
myself, the guy needs to pick up a dictionary and look. But the thing is that,
Well, it's one thing to update the charter defines the form of government. Now, you have to be careful here because there's a certain way it works in New Hampshire, but other states are different. So it may not be, you can't always compare New Hampshire with other states. It's more apples and oranges. But it's keeping the form of government that you have and versus just updating the language or updating or tweaking a few of the ways of doing things versus throwing everything out and radically changing the form of government,
well, I
which
think
was
that's
more
they
what
wanted.
Claremont
I
was.
think, as I understood it, they wanted to do that. But they were running into complications because, like, over the definitions, what if we do away with the term constable? Who would it affect? Nobody knew how a constable worked in that case, in that town. And there were some other instances where they wanted to change it. But changing some of the things to what you might consider more modern things might have an unforeseen consequence. And I think I don't know how it ever came out.
Now, I consider myself a low BS political analyst, so I don't mind saying on public television that some people saw this change of government as an attempt to get rid of the city manager form of government and specifically get rid of the current city manager. And I'm sure there were some people who went into the process with exactly that in mind. But I think the majority of the citizens, while they may have wanted to update the charter, didn't think that that was the way to go about to do it.
Well, I think it sometimes boils down to keeping the devil you know and not going with a devil you don't know.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
What do you think about that?
I think if you don't want someone in office, take the right to vote and vote them out. I think more people need to come out and show their faces. We talked earlier about city council meetings and stuff. I still think, in my mind, they have so many committees. I think it's important that they don't have as many committees and wouldn't need that if they had some public info so they can make an informed decision. It's very tough to, when you have all of this money coming in, it's very tough to micromanage it sometimes, and people are always concerned. You hear about taxes. Oh my goodness, my tax rate went up 10% this year. I don't know how I'm going to live. And well, if you're that concerned about it, you need to find out where your money's going, and if you don't like someone, if you don't like the manager, or you don't like the mayor, you have a right to vote and do so. And
Well, the problem with the getting rid of managers and other people under contract, it's apt to be an expensive process. And once they've signed a contract, they have legal recourse to
absolutely.
doing certain things. And that will be expense. And a lot of people don't want to have that undergoing. We've had, how many lawsuits in Claremont over the year?
A
None.
bunch.
And so that has been a big discouragement because a lot of businesses don't want to come in or whatever because they might end up in a lawsuit with the city over some issue.
I can't resist but to mention on the subject of elections that this year, 2015, is an election year in Claremont. All 9 members of the Claremont City Council are up for retirement, election, or re-election on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. So there's an opportunity, and the current Claremont Charter says that in Claremont, you have to elect all 9 all at once. So if Claremont wants some kind of a revolution, it can have it now. And the filing period for candidates on the city council is in the middle of September. There's a 10-day period in the middle of September. I don't have the dates at the top of my head. So not just vote, but hopefully there'll be new and fresh faces that will step forward and file in September and run in November for the Claremont City Council.
Well, I'd like to,
End of commercial.
yeah.
I got to say something about the changing expectations. As I said, I was born and brought up in Claremont, lived on North Street.
Okay.
Before clothes dryers, electric and gas clothes dryers, my mother, when she did the laundry, we used to hang it out on the line outdoors in the sun. Now, just down toward the river at the time was the Joy Manufacturing power plant and a huge coal facility where rail cars would come and dump coal that a crane would pick up to feed the power plant.
Well, in fact, the old plant is down there. with
The plant
stack.
is down there, and the smokestack is
Yeah,
still there,
that's
the
right.
partially says Sullivan.
Yeah.
Well, what came out of the smokestack was soot. And the soot would get on my mother's white
Exactly.
and colored laundry. You know what she did? Did she run down to City Hall and complain? No. She unclothespined it and brushed it off because at that time, there was no expectation that Joy Manufacturing owed anybody anything about air quality. Yeah,
Well, they
you
were
wanted them to have
running the
jobs,
town, too,
but
according to
notice how things have changed.
Yeah.
And not just in that area, but now they want air to come out of the incinerator that you can breathe.
Yeah.
Now, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, where's this going to
Well,
end?
it's like farmlands.
Do you want? I mean, after you get
Runoff.
air from the incinerator that you can breathe, what's next?
You don't
Is
wanna-
that heaven on earth?
Yeah. And it's like on farms, you don't want to smell cow dung and pig manure or pig pens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people are complaining about that, you know, the smells and everything.
Yeah. And the farmers in Vermont are facing this issue now of runoff from the fields where the animals crap running into the rivers and polluting the rivers. And it's
Lake Champlain.
and Lake Champlain. So there's, all of a sudden, our
Even
expectations,
Mascoma Lake has had problems.
when are these expectations going to be unrealistically out of sight? That's the question I have.
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to tell you that we won't be solving these problems today, but
We may not even be around to solve them.
that's true. But I'd like each of you to say something in conclusion about today and whatever it is, and we'll conclude. So I'll start with you, Michael. You've been an attentive listener while Bernie and I have been.
I think the big thing now is for people to volunteer and get out of the house, be part of the community. I think voting. I think you got to vote. If you have an issue, go to city council, express your thoughts. Again, I have a lot of faith. I think that we've spent a lot of money in the city, but I got to tell you, we can be proud of a lot of what we have. I mean, you look at the fire department. We got some of the best equipment in the world. I mean, and some of the best men and women. It could be your house or your neighbor's house, your children's. I don't want just some water throwers. I want somebody that will come in and do what they need to. And
Well, it'd be the same thing with teachers, keeping teachers in the community, keeping other services in the community, but where everybody is subject to review of their salaries and then out the door for the higher paid employees, just cut the budget and everything. That's
It's
always going to be a
unfortunate.
problem.
But we want the best for our children. And so if it does mean that we have to do that and review them every year and it does come down to money, unfortunately, if it was your child, you'd want to spend that money for the best that they can get. Even if it's someone that's handicapped, you know, you wonder what quality of life do they have if they're in a wheelchair.
Yeah,
But if
that's
that
true.
was your child, you'd want them to be educated.
Exactly. Yeah,
Regardless of the cost.
you'd want these things, but again, people don't want to pay for things all the times, and it's a question of what your priorities are in a sense. And okay, and what is your take on this?
Michael, on your points of voting and participating, I just got to say, amen, brother, amen. I think I've seen, in the 10 years I've been back, I've seen Claremont start to move from being just a little old insular small town, and starting to, you might say, expand its horizons and expand its possibilities. And I think Claremont has a lot of unrealized potential.
It does.
And I think the thing that's going to unleash progress within that unrealized potential is participation. Good things happen when bunches of people get involved and work together. And yes, you're free to complain. Complaining is okay.
Creating informed decisions
But
is so
work,
important.
I mean, words, but do.
But
And
you
you
know-
can complain while you're working, so there you go.
But you know what a lot of people do? They go south in the winter, so they're oblivious to what's going on.
The older one, yeah.
Secondly, they move out of town, or they put their places up for sale, or they move to the next town where the things seem rosier and better, and so forth. But I've noticed that over the years, and my mother used to say this too. She says, people leave Claremont, but eventually many of them come back. And I think you proved that by coming here. And
Never thought it'd happen.
I somehow got
Michael,
transplanted
you're
into the
settling
area,
down now.
But I settled into the community very well, and I'm supported by some really wonderful people, and I'm glad to help people, and that's what I'm here for. And I'm very pleased, and I think Claremont is a very good place to be. I think we do have some great leaders. I really
And
do.
Stevens High School is one of the best schools in the country. I don't care what they say, because
I
buildings
agree.
don't teach people.
I think we have a
Exactly.
fantastic superintendent. I'll tell you right now, I'm not putting a plug in. I think he has really helped move the educational system in its right direction. And,
Middleton McGoodwin.
Middleton, and I've gone into his office, and when he says he has an open door policy, he does. And I'll tell you, I've been in many meetings with him, and if it means helping a child, that man will bend over backwards to help.
Well,
And
that's
worth
a
lot
side
to
that I
me.
hadn't heard anybody express.
No, that's worth a lot to me. I deal a lot with people that don't. I advocate for a lot of people, and I hate to see anybody left behind. But I can tell you that he takes his job very seriously, and I have been in some really good meetings, and he is a fantastic superintendent for these schools. It's just my opinion, and I know he's paid very well. But you wouldn't get me to have his job. There's been a lot going on. We've been reconstructing the high school, the middle school, and by golly, he's a pleasant man to deal with. That's worth a lot to parents.
Well, I guess we'll have to leave it at that, but I want to thank both of you. Thank you, Michael.
very
and
much.
thank you,
Oh,
Bernie.
and thank you, Halford.
And we'll have to do this again sometime. Maybe in the fall, after certain things have happened or haven't happened or whatever.
Or about to happen.
Yeah, and we can, discuss this again. I don't know if viewers will be deeply interested in what we're doing, but I certainly hope so. And there's a lot of worthwhile.
We have to start somewhere, and so if it's the community access television, then so be it. you have to get out and you have to use your voice. And this is a great place to start, and it's here for the people.
Yeah, and I think Claremont needs to regain its key role in the Twin State Valley that it once had.
We
when
will.
it was developed.
We will. I believe we will.
Not that it's rivaling Hanover or Lebanon, but you know, it needs to. Well, thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm glad.